Welcome to the C-Suite at the Open Series ESG special. I am Arnie Goldstein. I'm the head of company services for the Pacific region based out of Vancouver. Joining me today is Barry Poe. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for mCloud Technologies, and we're going to be talking about ESG today. So Barry, welcome. And so my first question is, mCloud's really at an interesting intersection between ESG and tech. Can you share some insight on mCloud's point of view on ESG?
Absolutely, Arnie, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, I think one of the things that's really important to us at mCloud is that we see ourselves not just being committed to being more environmentally friendly and providing an opportunity to drive ESG outcomes for ourselves. We really see ourselves as an ESG enabler. So how do you use connected technologies like IoT, AI, and the cloud to reduce carbon footprint, improve worker safety? You know, we see that there's an opportunity to fill in the gap in how data is being used to drive efficiencies at what we'll call the sub-asset level. So think of all the energy intensive infrastructure at a site or a facility that could have the opportunity to have its carbon footprint reduced through better efficiencies. Using the AI in the cloud, that allows us to drive those efficiencies using existing infrastructure rather than just buying more hardware. And that's really kind of the objective for us. You know, we really see that as a place where technology meets ESG in a meaningful way. And by the way, if anyone's really interested, you know, we recently published our first annual ESG report. So if anyone's interested in learning more, that's available.
Excellent. So technology is an enabler for ESG mitigation strategies.
That's correct.
Excellent. So how are mCloud's customers benefiting from your technology as applied to ESG?
That's also a good question. You know, I think ESG has been an important component of the company since its founding. So if you take a look at all of mCloud's customers across all of our lines of business, so whether you're kind of looking at smart buildings or renewable energy or process industries like oil and gas, today we're saving our customers about 120 million kilowatt hours in energy savings every year. That's the equivalent from a calculations perspective of about 80,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions that we're able to curb or reduce every year, just as a result of the connectivity that we provide to all of this energy intensive infrastructure.
Wow, that's a huge savings. So mCloud has, I've read, recently signed an MOU with Invest Alberta to, quote unquote, decarbonize the oil and gas industry. How does mCloud plan on applying its tech to help out in Alberta?
Well, we're very excited about our engagement in the province of Alberta. As you say, you know, we signed an MOU with Invest Alberta, and our plan really sets mCloud up to be the leading ESG tech provider in the province. You know, we're really looking to help oil and gas customers who are on the lookout to improve their ESG standing. If you think about the hundreds of oil and gas facilities and the thousands of connectable assets and workers that are in the province, you'll see that there's a lot of opportunity to drive those kinds of efficiencies that I talked about through AI, IoT, and the cloud. And we know that about half of the emissions in the province are coming from fugitive gas emissions, where we can apply technology like our mobile solution to cut the time to detect and act on emissions from what is kind of the industry standard of 2 months to less than 24 hours. So those are some pretty meaningful opportunities to curb emissions directly through the use of mCloud's technology.
Well, going from 2 months to 24 hours is meaningful for sure. What's the one thing that you think companies can do to accelerate their ESG agendas within their organizations?
That's a good question. You know, I think one of the things that ESG sometimes is perceived as is kind of like a top-down change management initiative. And one of the things that we're always mindful of at mCloud is, you know, you only get the results if you're willing to take the action. So we're always thinking about how companies, how organizations can better empower their teams bottom up to take action on ESG. You know, we've seen a lot of great traction in places where decarbonization really has the opportunity to happen kind of one asset at a time. And that's kind of the key. You know, if you're able to empower your maintenance teams and your operation teams to look at that piece of infrastructure, and looking at that specific piece of infrastructure, how can you drive meaningful efficiencies, every single time you improve the efficiency of that asset, you're also reducing its carbon footprint. And so that's one of the key things, not just looking at it top down, but looking at ways in which you can kind of approach ESG from the bottom up.
I think that's fantastic advice. Congratulations on your first ESG report. I'm going to head over to your website this afternoon and download it.
Wonderful.
Thanks for joining me today, and always a pleasure to talk to you, Barry. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you on the markets.
Thanks very kindly, Arnie.